Okay, let's do some more work on the lathe, and and actually, this video that you're watching right now is not the video that I was going to show you. The video that I was going to show you was going to show you how I made this faceplate, but I'm not going to show you that video because I made a major mistake, and this piece right here, for as nice as it looks, is garbage. And so I don't want to show you a video on how I did it wrong. So now I will explain what I did wrong and why it was wrong and where I think I messed up. But what I did was I contacted PM Research, told them that I'm an idiot and what happened, and they sent me a new casting for free. Alls I had to do was pay $4.80 for the piece and $10 for shipping, and then they shipped it to me. Now, let me show you what I did wrong. I tried my best. Well, apparently I didn't because I screwed up. But everything that I did to prepare to make this part was focusing on making sure that these T-slots right there, look how nice that T-slot is, by making sure that those T-slots were perfectly centered on the casting. Now, the trick with this is when you're milling the T-slots, you're doing it from this side. You cannot see where the castings are. So I had to come up with a way to make sure that when I cut the T-slots, they were centered over those castings, those bosses. And so the first thing I did, which was my first screw up, I doomed myself from the beginning. I decided to turn the outer diameter by pressure turning it on the lathe. So this is just a scrap piece of aluminum. I put this in the lathe and I faced off the front, faced that off nice and flat. Then I glued a piece of sandpaper to it. And then I put the casting on there and I used a dial indicator on that outer surface to get this running true. Well, there's a couple of problems with that. One problem is, oh, by the way, let me show you where the screw up is. Like I said, I was trying to make sure that those were centered on the bosses. All right, so look where that is. And now look where that boss is. Yeah, my T-slot is way off to that side there. Same with that one. And here you can really see the screw up. You're not supposed to be able to do that. Yeah, that one broke through. That one broke through all the way through. That was the only one that broke through. The others would have been okay, even though they were off center. And for as much as it upset me when I saw that, because you don't know until you take it off and flip it upside down and look. I couldn't tell it was doing that when I was machining it. And for as many bad words as I said, I was actually kind of glad it broke through. Because if it wouldn't have, then they all would have been off center. And then I would have been struggling. I would have been like, well, they're visibly off center, but yet they'll work because they didn't break through. And I would have struggled on what to do. I would have struggled on leaving it and leaving it, messed up. But since that one actually went all the way through, it was a no-brainer to get a replacement part. And by the way, I was joking when I said they sent it to me for free. Hopefully that was obvious. I don't want any of you calling PM Research and saying that, this guy got one for free. That was a joke. I hope that was obvious. Anyways, so yeah, the fact that this one went all the way through, again, kind of made it a no-brainer that I needed a new part, and so I could do it the right way. And there were a few things, not just that, even before that happened, there were a few things I didn't like about the way I did this. So anyways, let's talk about the first mistake I made. And that was centering this up from that outer diameter using a dial indicator. The problem with that is that when you take this one and you measure that dimension here, which You can see it there. And you compare it to here and here and here. They're not the same. They're not concentric. The detailed casting, those four bosses, are not concentric to this outer diameter here. Even on this one, if I check here, I've got 5.02, but on the other side, 4.8. And then when I go here, I've got 5.17, 5.08. So this casted detail here is not concentric to the outside diameter. And plus, this is angled because it has the draft on it for the casting. And so when I was using the dial indicator on this outer surface, well, that alone isn't really a good method. And the fact that I did that when the inside here is not even concentric to the outside, well, that screwed me from the very beginning. But I didn't know it yet. I had no clue that I had screwed up when I did that. To try to make sure that the T-slots were in line with the castings, the next thing I did was, by the way, if we take a look at the drawing. Let's take a look at the drawing. Oh, by the way, I don't think I showed you this yet. I did say in the last video that I was going to take all of these individual, I made a copy of the full-size plans, and I just cut out each piece and then made a page for each piece. Each piece has like the drill I need, the end mills or reamers I need, the taps and dies I need. I could have put more thought in this. A lot of this isn't necessary, but it's just for me. And so each piece has its own page with all the different things I need. This is really beneficial for bushings and gears. So I have this page here for all of those sleeves, but then I went ahead and made a page for each one. So this is for all of those item numbers and how many there are, and then the dimensions A, B, C, and D. And so instead of trying to keep track of everything on this page, I made a printout for each one of these. So if we turn the page, here's item 29. I need 2 of them. There's the name of what that one is. That's this first one here, the reverse gear sleeve. I need a number 45 drill. Here's the dimensions for that one. And then here's the next one, item 30. I need 1. Here's the drill I need. Here's the dimensions I need. So I did this for those sleeves and the gears, which are back there, but for each individual piece. So for this piece, I know I need a 1/16 end mill and a 0.075 end mill, and I need a 1/4 tap, a number 3 drill, and a 1/4 drill. So that's what I need for this part. I also need a T-slot cutter. Now, I didn't put that here, but the T-slot cutter, I did the dimensions right here for that not this one, for that T-slot cutter. And I made a T-slot cutter. So that was an end mill, and I made a T-slot cutter. And here's a clip of how I did this on the lathe. All right, so got the T-slot cutter. I know what tools I need, so let's go back to how I screwed it up. So the first thing I did after I turned it to diameter, I made a sketch of where the T-slots would go and where those through slots would go. So that would be setting like this. And what I did was I drilled holes. And actually, the first thing I did was I scribed center lines on those bosses. And then I took a chunk of aluminum in the lathe, and I recessed down the diameter so that would fit here. And I put that in there, and I lined those center marks up in the milling machine, and I put like a pointer in there. I put a pointer on it so I could line it up horizontally and vertically, and then I drilled the holes here, 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 and here, and also those inner ones. And you could actually see where those holes line up here, and here, and here. And I drilled all those holes. So then the thought was, I could then take this out, flip it over, Well, before I flipped it over, I then, with the DRO in the mill, I offset and drilled the same holes 45 degrees over just the outer row. So I have 8 holes all the way around that outer row. So what I can do then is I can flip that over back in here, and then I could pin it right there and then do the T-slot. And since I had everything set up right here, I would pin it, do the T-slot, I would rotate it to here, pin it, do the T-slot, pin it, do the T-slot. You get the idea here. And then once the T-slots were cut, I could then pin it this way, put a pin here and a pin here, and then mill that slot here, and then pin it, mill that slot. And that should have worked. But like I said, I was not concentric to begin with, and I made another fatal flaw that I didn't even realize when I was lining this up in the mill. I found center for here. I found the center of this. And when I put this on and I was finding the centers of these, I got the mill to line up perfectly on the center line here and the center line here. But for here, my pointer was a little bit above the line here and a little bit above the line here. So what did I do? I shifted the whole bed up to what was on the center line. So I had my pointer center line here, center line here, center here, and center here. But because I did that, now the center of the whole circle was off. In hindsight, I should have known that was a stupid mistake. But yeah, so I had several tiny little errors. Any one error by itself, I probably still would have been close enough and it would have looked fine. But all those errors compounded together, scrapped that part. So I'm going to do things different. So again, I'm not going to make you watch 30 minutes worth of doing that. Instead, I just made you listen to 12 minutes of me explaining what I did wrong. So what I'm going to do different, instead of pressure turning it this way, I'm going to turn a scrap of material down that will fit on the inside here. So I'll turn a piece down that will fit the inside here very tightly. Obviously, I have to bore out the center. And so this will then be turned, you know, that almost, seriously? That's almost perfect right there. There's no wiggle in that. That fits on there. Look at that. That's perfect right there. Talk about getting lucky. I'll chamfer those corners just to make sure it fits in there nice and tight and perfect. But I'll pressure turn it that way to get the diameter. And I'm not going to take it to full diameter. I'll take it maybe halfway to the diameter I need so I can take it off and double check and make sure it's good. And yeah, that's where I'm going to start. So let me get the setup in the lathe. I'll do some more examination on this just to make sure that it is correct for here. I'll true that face up to make sure. Okay, so I've got the end of this faced off flat, and I put a file on that edge so that it fits right like that. Just like that. So there's still a lot more I need to take off of that, but obviously I can't get all the way in with the live center in there. I just flattened that off so I can flip this around in the pressure turning thing. So now, it's got a few voids in it. Hopefully that'll come out, because like I said, I still have a lot more to take off. So hopefully that'll come out later. But by doing that, I can now put it right here. Keep in mind, this piece has a hole all the way through it, so it's not going to be touching that. But now I can put the dial indicator on that edge, put the pressure turning on it, and then get this diameter, and then I can hold it in a collet and to do the finishing work on it. Okay, so that took a little bit of time with the dial indicator, and for one reason, I don't really have a good place to mount the dial indicator with everything so close, but I've got that dialed in as good as I can get it. So the next step is to turn down the post there so that it will fit that collet. Now this is another way I kind of messed up the original one, is I turned it down a little bit too small. I mean, it fit and it grabs, but it doesn't grab tight enough, and it actually slipped in there one time, which kind of messed stuff up. So I got to make sure I hit that dimension here so it'll fit that collet. Okay, so this is the part off of the lathe, and I wasn't perfectly happy with the surface finish, so I took some sandpaper to it. I did that off camera. I'm sure that'll get scratched up more as I'm, finishing the slots and stuff. So it'll probably go back on the lathe just to clean that up a bit more. Also off camera, I just took a little bit off of that back surface, which I did not do on a previous part that I wished I would have. And also, as you can see, I scribed the center line of those bosses. And that's going to help me set up for the next step. That will help me set up to make sure I cut the slots in correct when it's upside down that way. So on the mill, I mounted this scrap piece of aluminum, and I turned down a brass shaft that would fit that hole fairly tightly. and super glued that. Well, I drilled a hole in the block, super glued that in there. So now I can put this on there, and that holds the center. And when I drilled the hole for that post, I locked the X and Y. So the X and Y, right now that can't move. I drilled the hole and then put that little post in there. And so now that's going to lock that down. So now what I'm going to do is I just got this guy, center finder, edge finder, and I'm just going to put that zeroed or centered, and I'm going to use that to locate those center lines. So once I get that on the center line, here and here, I will then use my little hold down bars to clamp that in position. And then I can drill some locating holes for the through slots. So yeah, let me get this kind of set up. I'll get that all centered up and set up, and then we'll come back to drill the holes. And so what happens then, just to kind of give you a heads up, I'm going to drill the holes, once I center up those bosses, squared this way, then I'll set up for a 4-hole pattern on the DRO, and I'll offset that pattern 45 degrees. So that'll put a hole here, and here, here, and here, and that'll be the start for the through slots. So there's 4 through slots and 4 T slots, and those holes will go through into here. And I'll also do the other end of the through slots here, the inboard all the way around. And so then once those holes are in, and of course they'll go through to here, I can then take that post out and I can drill a hole the size of that boss, and then I can flip that over and pin it, and then I can do all the slots. So that's the thought. And also something I'm going to do that I did not do last time, just to make sure that I'm on center, I'm going to transfer, similar to this. Right now I'm just kind of doing it through the camera, so it's not good. But I'm just going to transfer that boss up the edge and onto the top surface. And I'm going to scribe that line all the way up. So now when it's upside down, I can see where the bosses are. Now I'm going to trust the DRO, which is what I did last time, and it screwed up. So this is more of a sanity check, just to make sure the DRO isn't lying to me. But again, the DRO lied to me last time, because once I got this centered, I shifted the bed to line up the marks because those weren't concentric to the out. Yeah, it was a mess. But yeah, I'm going to give myself some sanity marks, so I can verify that when I'm cutting those T slots that they're going to be centered on those bosses. So yeah, that's an extra step I'll do that I should have done in the first place. But yeah, let me get this all mounted, and I'll come back to you when we're ready to drill those holes. Okay, so I've got that clamped down, and I've got those center scribe lines as perpendicular to X and Y as I can get them. They're not 100% perfect, because I'm assuming it's just because it's casting, so it's hard to do that. But I've got it as good as I can get it, and I've got it clamped down. I've got a center drill in there, and what I did was I came out to that edge and looked at the DRO to see what that distance was, and it was 14 millimeters. And so what I did was I went to the DRO, and you push the function for holes, circular pattern for holes. So you can see I have, starting at 0, 0, which is the center, a diameter of 28, because again the radius is 14. I'm starting at a 45-degree angle and 4 holes. So this is the part set up with the X and Y this way. So I'm going to drill those 4 holes. And so basically what I do is I just select start right here, and it's going to give me the coordinates for that first hole. So again, that's where I'm at. So I'm just going to move the X and the Y until those are 0. And then I'm just going to spot that hole. And then I'm going to go to the next hole. and until I have all four. Then I'll put the little drill bit in, and then drill those. And I'll just go around twice. So I'll spot it, then I'll put the drill bit in and drill it, and then I'll do the inner row, and say, let me put the camera back and show you what that looks like. So I had to slightly modify the starter drill because those edges would contact the raised edge there in those outer holes. I learned that on the last one I did, the screw-up one I did. So I actually, on the other one, I actually nicked into the edge a couple of places. You can see that right there where I caught that edge. And I think there's one is a little bit worse. Yeah, right there. And again, when I saw that, I'm like, well, that's not too terrible, not that big a deal. It doesn't bother me that much. But I would rather not do that. So yeah, I modified that. So hopefully that won't happen again. So again, right now, this is mounted. Again, this is my scrapped one. This is mounted like this. So I'm just drilling those 4 holes, and that'll give me a way to pin it when I flip it over. And so now you can see the 4 holes here. So again, in order to mill the T-slots, that gets flipped over, and I can just pin it from here to here, and that'll hold it in that same orientation, so those T-slots will still be this way. But to mill the through slots, I would have to rotate at 45 degrees, so I'm going to need another set of holes here for the pinning. So I'm going to go ahead and do those now. So again, I'm just going to do the same 4 bolt hole pattern, but then I'm going to go back to a 90-degree offset, so there will be a hole in between all of those. That way I can pin this in all the positions for the T-slots and the through holes. Okay, so that's all of those rig pin holes in place. I probably don't need all of those because more than likely, that one's not in very far. More than likely, when I pin the part, I'm probably only going to use like 2 or 3 at a time. See if I can. That came loose. That was easy. So the next thing I need to do is drill that open to 9.42. Okay, so I've got my scribe lines on that are as close as I can eyeball to center on the bosses. Okay, so I pinned it, clamped it, and then I verified that the end mill is right on my center line. Admittedly, the center line is kind of eyeballed, very carefully eyeballed, and I think I've checked this as well as I can, so I think the only thing to do is to just do it. Now I've got my Z height set at 0. I'm going to bring this down to 2.5 millimeters and N to a radius of 6.7, and I'll probably go in a couple of passes. But yeah, let's just see how it goes. Worst case scenario, I buy a third one and try again. Hopefully. The other parts are a little easier than this one. I think it's okay. I don't know. I'm nervous. It didn't pop through. Didn't pop through. That's good. Let's see how centered it looks. It's not perfect, but it is way better than the other one. And it didn't pop through. The other one, you could definitely tell it was not centered over the boss. That one is real close. Let me wipe off that Sharpie so we could see it better. All right. I don't know how well it's coming up on camera. I was looking at it pretty close with the magnifier. It looks like it's offset to this side just a little bit. It's weird. It looks worse in the camera than it does my my magnifier glasses. But I can live with that. I'm not... I wish it was better. But as long as the other three turn out that good or better, I'll be happy with it. So I'm going to do the other three off camera. Just so I have more room to get my head in there, I guess. But yeah, I'll get the other three done, and then I'll get back with you when I'm ready to do the through slots. Okay, so all the T-slots are cut, and I'll be honest with you, one of them got messed up. But not the same issue I had before. It got messed up because when I started, as soon as I started to first cut, the whole thing shifted a bit. which I'm still not sure why, because that was tight, but I didn't have the pins in it. And it was the second one I did. The first one, I didn't have the pins in it either, and it worked fine. I guess I got lucky on the first one. The second one, as I'm about halfway in on the first cut, maybe 0.5 millimeter of depth, the whole thing just slightly shifted a tiny bit. So I realigned everything. I redid the cut. Went ahead and did the T-slot. Then I took it out to inspect it and see how bad it was. It's not good, but it's not horrible. I think it's the one back here. I'll show it to you when I'm all done here. So this will still be a usable part. It's just, I don't know, I'm a little bummed. Ever since then, I put all the pins in. So I got those 2 pins in here. There's actually a pin on the third one over here. It's just under that clamp. Obviously, I can't have a pin here. But this will be the 1/16 slot, so I'm just going to start in where the drill was, and I'm just going to move over 7 millimeters. Yeah, 7 millimeters. And I'll do it in a couple of passes, probably two or three passes, and see what it looks like. So we'll see how this one goes. And yeah, that end mill is a little bit wobbly. I have no idea why. I noticed that on my first one. It's a brand new end mill. But it seemed to still work okay. I'm happy with that. I'm going to have to put this back on the lathe to clean up the face. I got a lot of marks I don't like. Of course, this is a tool, and that would just show use of the tool, I guess. But yeah, I'll probably clean that up a bit. Look on the back side. That's about as close to that as I wanted. I could have gone further in, but I'm not mad at that. I'm okay with that. That'll work for me. So 3 more. I'll do them off camera, then we'll come back for the next step. Oh, by the way, the T-slot I messed up, that one. Notice that corner's knocked off. And when it shifted, the cutter shifted that way a tiny bit. So there's a little bit of a extra ledge right there. There's still a T-slot. If it could have been worse. If it would have shifted worse, it would have wiped out the T-slot. So it's still, yeah, right there you can really see. That's just the corner that got knocked off, though. That's only to about right there. And I thought about turning the diameter down to get rid of it, but that would have left a really tiny lip around here, and I don't want to do that. So, yeah, this one, unfortunately, this one is going to have, where'd it go? See, all the others are fine. All the others are perfectly fine and pretty much centered. I don't think I could get those centered any better than I did on the bosses. But that one, yeah, that one's the one that got messed up. So yeah, this one is going to have a blemish on this side. And my first attempt has a blemish all the way through it. So yeah, I have two imperfect parts. I'm not going to do a third one. I think the method that I used to do this one is a perfectly viable method of doing it. I just screwed up by not having it properly secured, and it shifted a bit when I started to cut, which really sucks and it irritates me. But well, like I said, I'm not going to do a third one, at least not anytime soon. Maybe if it bugs me enough when I'm all done with the whole project, maybe I'll order another one and do a third one. Or maybe what I'll do is if I ever have to call them up to order another replacement part, if I script another part, I'll just ask for one of these again, because they're only $4 or $4.50 or something like that. So anyways, I'm going to put this one on this way. There we go, pinned in 3 places. And I'll do that slot, and then, so 3 more slots, and then I'll come back and show you the next step. Okay, so all of the through slots are in. I've got it mounted back here. I've got pins in the through slot places. There is one there, it's just short. Of course, I made the pins out of drill bits. And so the next step is to take this down to the right height. Now, in the first one of these I did it in the lathe, and it came out okay. But since I'm set up here in the mill, I just thought I would clamp it down, pin it in place, and just deck that off to the right dimension. I just need to take off just a little under 5 millimeters, 4.8 millimeters, and that'll get it to the right height. And then I need to put a little counter bore in it, and then thread it, and then a final polish on a lathe, and then this piece will be done. So let's take off the top of that. All right, before I do that next spot drill, I'm going to go ahead and thread it. It's a 1/4 28 tap thread through. Clean that up on the lathe, and this part will be done. Okay, so here's those 2 parts done, and yeah, I'm not happy. I mean, I kind of am, but not really. This is the first one. This is the one where I didn't get things centered and it busted through. Now, I could use this. I could fill that in with JB Weld, sand it all smooth. But you could look at the edge and tell that they're off center. So if anybody was really looking, they could tell. I don't know if anybody would notice. So I think I will do that. I'm just going to, I'll do that just so I'll have it. This one would have been perfect if it weren't for that one. Where'd it go? That one. So what did we learn? First off, use Sharpie lines and scribe out everything for sanity check witness marks. If I would have done that with this one, I would have known that the lines would have been off center and I wouldn't have cut them. So if I would have done those Sharpie marks all over the top with scribing the center lines, that would have prevented the issue here. So lesson learned there. Especially if you're doing something blind where you can't see the backside, it's critical. With this one, make sure everything is secure. I had one clamp on it and I didn't have any of the pins and it caused it to rotate. And that's what messed up that one T-slot. Now again, it's still usable. I did just put this on the lathe and I just went over it with some sandpaper. There are a few little nicks and dings just from working on it, because this aluminum is really soft and gummy. It's actually not, it's not really pleasant to machine, if I'm being honest. It's just, I don't know what kind of aluminum is, but it's just not fun to machine, at least not for me. So just working on it in and out of the mill, I got a few little dings and scratches. So I put it in a lathe. I just went over it with some sandpaper to clean it up. I could take a skim cut. I've got a little bit of material left. I could take a skim cut to get rid of those little marks, but I'm not gonna, because I'm not going to risk messing this one up, because right now this one is usable. Now when I put this on the finished model, I will put the bad T-slot towards the back side, so the viewer will be looking at this side and hopefully they won't notice that. And like I said, if it bugs me enough towards the end of the project, I might redo it again. Third time should be the charm. But anyway, so that's one part, well, technically two, but one part done. And I have a feeling this video is way too long, so I'll end it here. And hopefully you guys got something out of this and enjoyed it. I'm sure there's plenty of more mistakes to come. But until then, as always, thanks for watching.